News from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Greenlands and unique ancient buildings on top of high mountains in the Governorate of Muscat are examples of Omani's adaptation to the environment. Specialists, consultants and physicians discuss the latest developments of ophthalmology in Muscat. And an international workshop discusses latest medicine and the treatment for infertility and artificial fertilization. Those were the headlines, and now for the news in detail. In the Governorate of Muscat, citizens over ages had adapted to their environment and mountainous topography. This was shown in their buildings, which proved the unique Omani architecture. Such creative buildings are called Beit al-Quful. Beit al-Quful protected them from adverse weather conditions. They were built by using materials from the surrounding environment. People of Muscat also reclaimed rigid mountains and transferred them to agricultural areas. These areas also now attract mountain climbing lovers. These areas are also a treasure of unique geology that dated back to thousands of years. A host of specialists, consultants and physicians from inside and outside the Sultanate discussed at Muscat International Ophthalmology the latest developments in the field. The two-day event also dealt with topics related to the treatments of eye disease, such as conical cornea and retina and other diseases. Through its work papers, a number of researches and studies were presented in the field of eye disease and treatment technologies in this regard. Oman Society of Obstetrics and Gynecology organized in Muscat an international workshop. It discussed latest medicine and the treatment of infertility and artificial fertilization. Some 217 specialized medical cadres took part in the workshop. It also discussed causes of delayed reproductivity. The workshop also dealt with ways to develop women healthcare and give the opportunity for natural reproduction without resorting to artificial fecundation. Still to come in our news bulletin. The UK's joint oldest man celebrated his 110th birthday yesterday in Hull.
Okay.
Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Large crowds of flag-waving Palestinian protesters marched toward the Gaza border fence with Israel today, some of them throwing stones and drawing Israeli fire that officials said killed at least 3 people. The Palestinian Health Ministry also said 365 Palestinians were hurt by live fire, rubber-coated steel pellets or tear gas fired by Israeli forces at several locations along the fence. The protests had begun as mass sit-ins organized by Gaza's Hamas, but quickly spun out of control. Israel's military said thousands of Palestinians rolled burning tires and threw stones at forces stationed on the border, and that troops opened fire at the main instigators. Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas supreme leader, visited the tents along with Gaza leader Yahya Sinwar. Several hours before the confrontations, a 27-year-old Palestinian was killed by an Israeli tank shell in southern Gaza. Another Palestinian man was wounded in the incident. Russia announced the expulsion of more than 150 diplomats, including 60 Americans, in response to mass expulsions of Russian diplomats by Western countries over the poisoning of a former Russian spy and his daughter in Britain. Russia also ordered the closure of the U.S. consulate in St. Petersburg. Meanwhile, U.S. consulate staff in St. Petersburg, Russia's second largest city, were today preparing to wind up operations after the Russian government ordered the consulate's closure. Police said a fire on a bus carrying migrant workers from Myanmar to Thai factories had killed at least 20 people today. 27 people managed to escape the fire, with one of them severely burned. The fire was reported to police around 1:30 a.m. local time and occurred in western Thailand along the border with Myanmar. The driver told police that the fire started in the middle of the bus and spread quickly. People in the front managed to escape, but those in the back of the vehicle were trapped. NASA is about to go on a journey to study the interior of Mars. The space agency held a news conference at its Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, detailing the next mission to the Red Planet. Scheduled to launch as early as May 5th, NASA's interior exploration using seismic investigations, geodesy and heat transport InSight, a stationary lander, will be the first ever mission dedicated to exploring Mars's deep interior. A scientist said InSight is like a scientific time machine that will bring back information about the earliest stages of Mars's formation 4.5 billion years ago, which will help to learn how rocky bodies form, including Earth, its moon, and even planets in other solar systems. InSight carries a suite of sensitive instruments to gather data, and unlike a rover mission, these instruments require a stationary lander from which they can carefully be placed on and below the Martian surface. Mars is the exoplanet next door, a nearby example of how gas, dust, and heat combine and arrange themselves into a planet. Looking deep into Mars will let scientists understand how different its crust, mantle, and core are from the Earth. The UK's joint oldest man celebrated his 110th birthday yesterday in Hull with friends, family, and even the city's mayor. Bob Waiton shares the milestone with Scotland's Alfred Smith, who was born on the same day and year. Waiton has said that the secret to a long and healthy life is luck, but also the choices you make, which can make life fulfilling and interesting. Reflecting on the fanfare surrounding his birthday, Waiton said that what matters are his friendships.
How many pieces?
110.
110. Okay.
A ceremonial dig.
Now back to some more local news. In celebration of World Water Day, the Directorate General of the Regional Municipalities and Water Resources of the Governorate of Buremi celebrated the World Water Day. The theme of this year's World Water Day is Nature for Water, stressing the importance of preserving water and to ensure its sustainability. In celebration of this day, a number of municipalities and educational institutions of the Governorate took part in the event. The event aimed to promote awareness and conveying messages about the value of water among all sectors of the society. It included an exhibition that aimed to remind people about the importance of water and ways to conserve it, besides the right way to use it. Under the theme Tourism for People with Disability, Reality and Future, the 18th Gulf Forum for Disability was concluded in Muscat. The forum focused on improving the services provided for people with disabilities and discusses a number of needs with specialists and decision makers in this regard. It also looked forward to issue an electronic Gulf tourism guide for people with a disability. It is worth mentioning that over the last days of the forum, the people with disabilities from outside the Sultanate got the chance to discover the scenic beauty and tourism potentials of Oman. Now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Clear skies will prevail over the Sultanate with chances of low clouds and fog late at night and early morning over the governorates of South Sharqiya, Dhofar and Worcester. Winds will be southeasterly light to moderate. Seas will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1.25 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Green lands and unique ancient buildings on top of high mountains in the governorate of Musandam are examples of Omani's people adaptation to the environment. Specialists, consultants and physicians discuss the latest developments of ophthalmology in Muscat. And an international workshop discusses latest medicine and the treatment for infertility and artificial fertilization. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.